All right, welcome back to Waste Some Time with Jason Green. I am Jason Green, bringing you brand new interviews right here on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe, sign up for Patreon, become a member, all the cool things you can find in the description. I've been looking forward to this interview because I find that not everybody in every band does as many interviews as talks as much. So the band Great White. I see AUDIE DESBROW out on the road all the time, and he's one of the guys who was there for all those years, and he was in the core lineup, is in the core lineup of Great White, but I didn't find that he did many interviews. And it never occurred to me to ask because I assumed that he was quiet, and some people just don't want to hear it. But we went to see Michael Schenker Group on the last Monsters of Rock cruise. And I said, AUDIE, I'd love to have you on the show. And he said he'd be happy to do it. So he's here. He's here today. We're going to talk a little bit, maybe find out some things you didn't know about AUDIE. We'll find out what Great White's up to. All that and more right after this. Just wanna waste some time with you. Sometimes it seems too good to be true. Nobody out there can waste time without you. Right, here he is, AUDIE DESBROW.
How's it going?
Good to see you, AUDIE.
Good to see you, Jason. How you been?
Good, thank you. Good to see you on dry land as well.
Yeah, no more rocking of the ship.
We had some rocky weather a couple of those days. I call you the quiet member of Great White. I'm not sure your band members would say that, but I think that.
No, I'm pretty. I guess I'm pretty talkative at times, but I'm just. I guess you've always caught me on the quiet times.
Maybe it's funny. I'll start by saying you have a new singer, Brett Carlisle. He's incredible. He's the best thing that could happen to that band. And I think he added a new fire amongst the members as well, because I see much more energy and smiles in everybody else as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, he's definitely brought a spark into the band again. And the fact that, he can handle the range that Jack had in his heyday, he was also younger at the time as well. So that is in general with most singers, when they're younger, you can hit all the high range and all the high notes. And 30, 40 years later, it's a little more difficult. But yeah, he's definitely lighting a spark under this whole thing. He's, like I said, we can learn just about anything we want to. He can play anything we want to do out of the repertoire, which is great.
I was at his first gig. I was in town to interview Kelly Nichols with Riley's LA Guns, sound check, and I heard his voice, and I said, "Who's this kid?" At first, I said, "Uh-oh, here we go again, rotating singers," which a lot of bands have that thing. Andrew Freeman was singing. He's a great singer and a nice guy, but he was locked into the band last in line,
Right?
and just wasn't. Couldn't give that up. And Great White needed a full-time singer. At soundcheck, I told Mark, "I think you got your guy." He looked at me with that blank face, and he was nervous. And I said, "I don't know. I'm hearing something special." And that night, I remember Lady Red Light. I was recording it, and I messaged a few people, Stevie Rochelle at Metal Sludge and some others, saying, "These guys have a kid who can sing. He just came in on extremely short notice."
Yeah.
And he's got it. And I'm not always the biggest fan of bands who change members and this and that. In your case, I've seen Jack, it seems like it's not a bridge you want to cross again.
No.
Or probably not even possible. And I think that the kid, Brett Carlisle's his name, he adds a lot of energy. I saw him, and I noticed when I see him on the road with you guys, he kind of goes off and does his own thing. And I said, you might be smart staying away from the old guys. I go, maybe be your own person, having your own time, and he doesn't have to talk about the same issues that people of our age discuss.
Right.
Taking shoulders and backs.
Sure.
So anyway, congratulations, and the audiences are seeing it too. You guys are out playing casinos. You have a really successful package tour with Slaughter that goes out, and occasionally Piercy we're on there as well. And so it's great. And for those who are skeptical, I recommend you check out Great White with Brett because he does justice to the old songs. He has the blues voice, and you know what? Sometimes I made Steven watch a little bit, and he said maybe the kid shouldn't be so upfront. Maybe he should let the original guys. I said no, it's the
No,
opposite. He needs to be out there. He's
yeah,
doing the
exactly.
heavy lifting.
Yeah, absolutely. Appealing to the younger folks and even our, the older folks, the older women, there's this young kid up there, he's looking good. He's singing great. He's in good shape and, he's got a great attitude and it's just really great to have him on board for sure.
Yeah, and I think adds life and longevity, because there is an interest, and we want to see our favorite bands sound like our favorite bands, and you have that going for you. So that's the present. I want to go back a little bit because I feel like not as many people know as much about you. You grew up in Los Angeles, right?
Yes, I did. I went to Rosemead High School, Rosemead, San Gabriel Valley. And yeah, just grew up in Rosemead, dull little town. It's changed much, but yeah, just been a local around here for a long time.
And you started playing drums young. Were you about 13?
No, actually, when I was like 3, I got this little toy drum kit, where everything's connected to the bass drum and has some picture of some, I don't know what on it, but I remember I broke all the drum heads like in one day.
Mhm.
And I was afraid I was going to get scolded for it by my dad, but he knew they were just toys. But yeah, I started out, actually as young as that. But when my parents knew that I was interested in drums, they allowed me to go to drum lessons once a week at school. So they got me a pad and I had the booklet and sticks. And then a few months after that, they rented me a snare drum from a music store by the week. And then when I was 12, they got me a Sears and Roebuck drum kit, a 4-piece blue metal flake kit from Japan. And I played the records with that in my bedroom for, several years and started hooking up with other musicians from around town and started jamming in their garage or whoever's garage was available. And basically that's how I started out, just started jamming with people and playing the records basically. And then, I had those little drum lessons with a pad, but it wasn't like reading music or playing a drum kit, just like rudiments and stuff. And then when I was in high school, I played the high school marching band with the big old hats and uniforms and doing the halftime shows and the band review parades and stuff. And it was all cool. It was fun, but it was all musically involved. So I went for it, as far as that went. Pretty cool.
Yeah. People know about Great White, but maybe they don't know about Hog Bottom. That's your band at 13, right?
Yeah, one of the very first bands. Actually, this guy by the name of Joe Delgado, he's in a band called the Delgado Brothers. They've been around for many years. I remember when I first met Joe with my friend Tom, we were all like 13 years old, and on the weekends at Joe's house, he had a bunch of older brothers, and they would jam with all these different musicians that come there in the afternoon, set up and just start jamming, guys with harmonicas and great guitar players. And I remember there's never a lot of drummers around, so I always got thrown up there with all these older guys, jamming on stuff I've heard on the radio or vaguely knew, but just went up there and faked it. But it was a great experience for me back in those days. So
Yeah. And I don't want to age you, but when you auditioned for Great White, you were 29 years old. Um,
yeah.
that's 1985, I believe. So tell me a little bit about musically what you were doing in between those years.
Well, before I had the chance to audition for Great White, I was in a band called Riff Raff with Tracy G. He played in World War III and with Dio for a couple albums. And even farther back then, I was in a band with Tracy. Jack Russell had joined our band when he was 16. We were doing backyard parties and stuff. But that all came to an end for a while. And then he hooked up with Mark, and then they did a deal with Capitol. And I was just, no, actually, it wasn't Capitol, it was what's a subsidiary of Capitol. I can't remember the record company in Europe. But anyways, yeah, I just thought that was really a trip. And yeah, so I jammed with this band called Riff Raff with Tracy and a couple other fellas, and we did a lot of clubs and backyard parties. We had some originals and stuff, but nothing ever really became of it, you know. So I mean, I was in and out of bands, backyard party bands, doing people's demos and stuff throughout the years, and different kinds of music, and you know, just anything that was had to do with playing, I would do it for the experience and the opportunity, you know. But my first love was doing like rock, like I do now, you know. But yeah, so it was interesting how that happened, because you know Mark was in a band called Zizix when we were in this band called Centaur with Jack and Tracy G, before Riff Raff, and we were like rival backyard party bands and stuff, and it was just weird that we had parted ways with Jack, and then Jack hooked up with Mark, and those guys used to call me in the middle of the night saying, "You got to join our band." I'm like, "Yeah, whatever," you know, blah blah blah. They're always, you know, halfway high or drunk at the time back in those days, and I just didn't pay any attention to it. And then next thing I knew was when I was in the band with Tracy, he'd split from the band, and I was just going like, I got to come up with something, like I got to be in a band with a guitar player with just as good as Tracy, or a different kind of sounding style band altogether. And at that particular time, there was all that new wave stuff that was out, you know. And so I got in this band for a while. They had that kind of style, and I was doing that for a while, and it was good and everything. But all my friends said, "Man, you're really good in this band, but it's just not you, man. It's just not you in this kind of band." And you know, that's when I got offered the thing with Great White at that time. And I'm going, wow. Because the band I was in at the time, there was like kind of new wave thing. We had this speculation deal going with Capitol Records at the time, and we are about to do a demo. And then I get this offer to audition for Great White. I'm like, oh, well, they got a record out, and I know two of the guys, and it's way better music. And so I just went with that. But I did probably about 4 or 5 probably auditions with the band, and then the final thing was to go into a studio with the band and record a song that we worked on together, fresh, to see how I would handle being in a studio. So that was a lot of pressure. I passed.
Did you know why they were getting rid of Gary Holland, the first drummer?
They told me that he was kind of limited in his creativity. He only had so many kinds of beats to play or something like that. He was didn't play on time very consistently. That he was consistently late. I guess that's what the terminology was. And they had like speed up his snare drum so it'd be more in sync time with the band at the time. And this was all before digital tape, you know. Shit had to be cut and spliced and put back together, and there was no punching in and all that. You know, I mean, you can punch in on tape, but you know, there's a lot more involved in that today. But yeah, that was basically supposedly the reason he was just limited on stuff that they wanted to do, I guess, in the direction they wanted to go in. So yeah, it was really bad too, because I remember at the first rehearsal I went to, Gary was there getting his stuff out. So it was just a weird vibe, like, hey, I'm the guy taking your place. You know, I don't even know you, but you know, good luck to you. They didn't know what to do. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just doing a job. So 1986, Shot in the Dark comes out. That's the first album that you'll play with Great White. And, you know, I would say the beginning of obviously a success. You know, there's songs on that record that people still know, you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was quite the experience to actually do a record for the first time. You know, I've done demos previously, but not an actual full-blown record in a well-known band.
Yeah, and Lauren Black's still on bass at that time, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, good bass player, man.
Yeah, he was an interesting guy. He's one of those guys you hear the folklore stories.
Yeah. I mean, when I first joined the band, I started hanging with him, and we went out clubbing one night, and I don't think I got back for a couple of days from that date. I went straight to rehearsal, like the first rehearsal as being in the band. It was a pretty wild night. I won't get into details, but yeah, it lasted for a while. It was crazy days, but quite the experience. But he was a really talented guy, really good bass player.
Yeah, he's no longer with us.
No, he passed away a few years ago.
Okay, that's what I thought.
From what? But at least a few years ago, maybe a little bit longer. Time just goes by fast, but it could even be 5 years ago.
Yeah, it feels recent, but we all lost a bunch of years as well.
Yeah, you're right.
1987, this is the breakthrough year, I would say,
Hmm.
Great White. And the album, now we're really getting, Rock Me, Lady, Red Light, a lot of these songs that everybody, Save Your Love, songs that everybody knows. And Lauren plays bass on this record as well.
Yes.
Um, but does Tony come in to do the touring at this point?
Um. Yeah. Yes. Wait a minute. Yeah. Yeah. It was after that. Yeah, he would definitely come in touring at that point because Lauren was let go after we recorded that record and did the video for Rock, I believe. Yeah. It was actually after the video for Rock Me, several hours late for $100,000 video. And my manager at the time, he just says, hey, if he doesn't show up by this time, we're going to have somebody replace him. You have a problem with that? I said, no, this is my first video. I'm on Capitol Records. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do anything to disrupt what I got an opportunity to do, so he made it on time. But, after he did the video with us, I guess it told them to edit him out as much as possible. And then he was let go probably shortly after that video was recorded. But yeah, I just, I mean, I don't know the whole situation. I walked into a situation where they had been together already. They'd done a tour already, done a record already. So, I mean, just normal things, I guess, that people go through with substance abuse, I guess, and alcohol.
Yep.
That kind of thing. So,
I consider this the tour, the classic lineup of Great White. I think most people do.
yeah,
From left to right, yourself, Jack Russell, Tony Montana, Michael Lordy, and Mark Kendall. And I think that most people, embrace this lineup. This is also going to be the lineup that's in the video for Once Bitten, Twice Shy. Becomes massive hit, obviously. And you guys are managed by Alan Niven at this point, right?
yes, correct.
And he was a songwriter as well. Not only was he a manager, he was wrote lyrics, I believe, right?
Yeah, he wrote a lot of the lyrics and arrangements, and he just had an ear for songs. And yeah, he was more than just a manager,
Yeah.
So he did a lot of the creativity process as well.
Yeah, and he was also working with Guns N' Roses in the beginning, and he thought it was a good idea to sort of put Great White on with Guns N' Roses. Great White had been around a lot longer, but Guns N' Roses was coming on strong.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I remember when we did that live with the Red, we were like kind of upset, like, oh well, we're opening for Guns N' Roses. They hadn't done anything yet, but they're about right in a break. Practically after that show, and he just goes, trust me. He goes, you'll be glad you opened for them. You don't want to go on after them. It's all about the whole buzz was about that. But we got lots of exposure by being on that show. So, yeah, it was cool, man. I mean, Steven and I met Steven a long time. We actually got our first drum endorsement together with Pearl Drums. And actually, we went together in my car and we picked up drum kits at the factory. And then I took him to the Red Onion, I think it was called at the time. I don't know if they even still have those. And we got pretty drunk, and I had to take him to SIR to go rehearse. And he was kind of too buzzed to play, and Axel was kind of pissed. And I'm like sinking low in my seat. I brought this guy here. We were just celebrating getting our drum kits, But everything was cool after that. But that was just a little short story to share. But
Yeah, it's some of those little personal memories are the best ones that not everybody gets to hear. You picture you guys excited to have a drum endorsement. It's a big deal, especially at that time.
oh
And
yeah,
not everyone was getting one. And Pearl Drums, especially, you're in good company.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Now, I won't go over the entire history of Great White. Mark Kendall's been on the show, and him and I went over a lot of the events. But so your involvement with White will run to 1999,
Hmm.
and I know that some of the later years were starting to get a little leaner for everybody.
Yeah.
It
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
just Great White, obviously. It was getting tougher, but you guys did continue to make records, and they're good records. They're records that if you go back and revisit, I think people enjoy them.
Yeah.
99's Can't Get There From Here. That was Portrait. And that was
Hmm.
the time when there was a little bit of resurgence. Portrait was John Kalodner was signing up some bands. You
Yeah.
guys did the Poison tour. I think it was the best one. It was LA Guns with Jizzy Pearl. It was Great
Yes.
White with Jack, and it was and all of you. And then it was
Rat.
a Rat with Warren and Steven.
Yeah.
And then the original lineup of Poison. And I think that it's sort of begun the resurgence that people wanted that music again.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was a great lineup, great tour. That was a lot of fun. I'll never forget that. That was a blast. All the different combinations of rock bands together it was a strong force. Definitely. Yeah.
What happened that made you leave the first that time?
Um, well, let's see. Remember we had a gig playing with Quiet Riot in some muddy farmland mud pit somewhere out in the middle of nowhere.
Mhm.
And I remember Jack was upset that we had to open for Quiet Riot and just some weird stuff. And he was calling our management, going, I don't want to open for the. I'm just thinking, let's just go to the show and have fun. I mean, what's the big deal? So, anyways, we got done doing the show. We didn't get a sound check. We flew in straight from the airport, straight there, and did the show. And it just nothing was right. It was bad sound for me. I had a bad night. It just I mightn't have been that bad, but just wasn't enjoyable to play because the sound was just so messed up. You just still got to do it and trust your house guy, whatever. But I remember, after the show, we're in this little trailer, and I'm like, yeah, everything was, the sound was this, sound was that, and Michael took it all personal and said, hey, I'm sorry you couldn't get it perfect for you. I'm like, no, blah blah blah. And then Jack steps in, and he gets in my face and starts saying some weird stuff about you just quit the band and it just got into this weird argument from just that. And the next thing you know, Jack and I are throwing blows in the trailer. And because like he got me in my face like this close and, F bombing me and I'm bombing him back. And then I'm thinking in my mind, just touch me and I'm going to fire on you. And it was that heated. And so he pushed me and then we started throwing blows. And I was pretty much fired after that from the band. And then plus, like you said, it was lean times, and they wanted me to do some shows, and I hadn't been paid. And I'm not going. I told Sean McNabb at the time, who was a bass player, and I said, man, I'm not going to go do these shows without getting paid. And so that's what ended it right there. I refused to go do some shows. They hired somebody to take my place real quick. Did a couple shows, and then I got some handwritten letter by this the tour manager at the time saying I was fired doing causing Jack Russell bodily harm. It's just some stupid stuff. But that all got handled and everything was cool after that. Just shit that happens. You're with somebody for so long, you get arguments.
Meanwhile, your bandmates were probably living vicariously through you, probably thinking it's about time somebody.
Yeah, it was kind of like that, because for the longest time, Jack was really hard to deal with a lot of the time on the road, and just some of the things he said and did to us. It didn't unnecessarily, but you just stuff you don't forget, and it just came to a head. And when he got me heated like that, I started thinking about all those years I shut my mouth around him for so many different things, and it just exploded. And, you let it out, and it happens, and it's over with. So, he apologized to me and stuff like a few days later, and everything was cool. But I didn't go back to the band for several years.
Yeah. What did you do in that downtime from the Great White?
In the downtime, actually, Tony Montana had a band. side project he had, this record.
Right, I saw it here in Vegas at a club called Pinky's.
Okay.
Going back a
Yeah.
while.
We did a couple shows. We did one like a couple shows actually in Michigan, New York, and Florida or something. We went on this little bus and flew out there. We just like this mini 3-date tour and played locally around town and stuff. And then I did a lot of projects for different friends of mine that had different kinds of music that needed drums on it, and these really long 8, 7, 8, 9 minute long songs I had, and the guy never wanted me to punch in. So I had to learn that thing from you know, it's hard to like not mess up something in 9 minutes, like hit a, you know, whatever. But it was fun. I did a lot of stuff for him, and then did stuff with Tony, and just some other projects, a couple little gigs that I did for my friends' kids at bands, just fun stuff like that. And you know, and then so many years later, I get a call from Jack, and he says, "Hey, man, I just got out of Betty Ford, man. Would you be into like, you know, doing a record and a tour?" And I said, "Sure, that sounds great." You know, so
Well, and before we get to that, you know, tragically, the name Great White will always be involved with the Rhode Island fire, an event that you were not even there for. Michael Lardy was not there. Scott Snyder, your current bass player, was not there.
yeah,
And Mark was sort of barely there in a sense. He came out to help Jack do some shows. They were calling it Jack Russell's Great White. Jack
yep,
wanted to help sell a few tickets. He brought Mark out. Um,
yeah,
the story's been documented so many times. Um, but that event and that tragedy will follow Great White forever. And I think it's important to mention that the band that you're going to see didn't set off those pyros and wasn't even there.
no.
And so, I mean, it's got to be hard on you though.
Oh yeah, I mean, totally. I mean, most people know by now. Most people forgot, but since lately they put out this documentary celebrating or rekindling 20 years ago, and just recently 21 years, rekindling the horrible tragedy, which just refreshes the horribleness in people's minds, which is not fair. Because I think basically that documentary is not truthful at all. Because Great White did Great White that was there. None of us were there. Like I said, Jack and Mark was helping him. It was Jack Russell's Great White, not Great White. But you know, like you said, it'll never be disassociated from the band. You will never be in the Hall of Fame. It's just we'll never play Rhode Island. We actually got banned from playing Connecticut a few weeks ago at this one gig that everybody does, and people from Rhode Island, congressmen and stuff, and people from that other state was how and pressuring this promoter to not let us play there. So didn't get to play there.
Wow.
Of
Yeah.
that. It's
It,
just
it,
I
it,
wasn't
it
even.
you know, it's something you weren't even there. And you guys in 2006, you talk about Jack reconnecting with you. Although Jack had said many times, "There's no way I'll go back with Audie. We've got too many problems." But things sometimes work out. And I think at that time, everybody wants as many members of the core lineup as
Oh,
possible.
exactly. Yeah.
And he had to live in the shadow of that horrible event.
Yeah.
And deal with it. I can't imagine coming out of that situation in the sharpest state.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a terrible thing. I couldn't believe it, you know, when that happened. I just went, man, I'm lucky that I wasn't there. And I was, you know, kind of envious that they were out doing stuff without me at that point.
Sure.
I get all these calls from people saying, check out CNN and look what happened with the band. I'm like, wow, I'm so glad I wasn't there. I mean, I might have not have made it out.
Right.
I would have been one of the guys like, oh, I got to go save my drums and run back in and try to get them and then not make it out.
I know a lot of musicians who felt that way, that they probably would have not thought it would happen so fast, would have went back, would have waited to see what was happening. You know,
Sure.
No one could have anticipated
No.
the speed that it accelerated.
Yeah. You know, and it was so cold outside too. I think it was wintertime, right? When that happened. And
snow on the ground.
Yeah, that's just crazy. I mean, I just can't even fathom being in there. I mean, that must have been horrible. Horrible.
Yeah. I mean, and so again, as I said, not to relive a tragedy, but I think it's important for people to understand that the Great White that they're seeing is not the band that
No, not
involved, responsible, or even there.
yeah. I even had my wife call Reels TV and said, "Hey, look, my husband doesn't want to be implicated in the death of 100 people. He wasn't even there, and you have this flyer up on the documentary where it shows the lineup, like one kind of like you showed me, of me, Tony, and Michael, Mark, and Jack from the heyday. They used that picture in there. Whoever the club owners, promoter, whoever did that, used that particular flyer. So, they actually, she said that I would like to have my face blurred out, like the episode of Cops where the people don't sign it. And they were trying to tell us it's really expensive to do that. I'm like, it just takes a little thing on the computer and boom, it's blurred out. So I went and saw the documentary recently. It ran again, and it's cool because it shows that flyer and everybody's face is blurred out except for Jack's.
Yep.
So that indicates, okay, they weren't actually there, because it made me look like I was involved. They never showed or talked about anything actually really on that stage with those two. You know what I mean? With Jack and with Mark. They never mentioned any of those guys or show any of their pictures. Just mine and the lineup. And then the marquee didn't say Jack Russell's Great White, because a lot of them try to get away with that to try to draw more out in. So it's just Great White.
Mm-hmm.
So when CNN or whatever news company came and flashed that marquee on the news, it was carved in stone. It was Great White, which truth, but
yeah, and
Jack was Great White, so it was Great White. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, well, and I think you guys prove that now by successfully touring, that this band that features 3 of the core members of Great White, and Scott's been in the band for quite some time.
Yeah, 15, 16 years now.
Yeah. And so it shows the difference. So okay, but 2006, Jack comes back. This begins a little bit of the craziness. Well, maybe not begins, but
right.
He has some substance or health issues.
Right. Yeah. Health/substance, substance/health. Yeah.
He's falling down. At times he's in a wheelchair. I mean, no disrespect to anyone who suffers from substance, Jack included. I didn't have to tour with him though, like you did.
It was tough. It was really hard.
I can only imagine. Would see him in airports and things on these gigs, and he looked troubled. And even when he sounded good, he was becoming a liability. There were shows you guys were missing, and you tried different people. One time was Paul Shortino. That was a short one. Then Janie Lane.
Yeah. That actually worked out pretty well for us. Well, while it lasted. And I was impressed. I respected the guy fully after he played with us, because I was never a fan back then. But after he played with us, I'm like, wow, this guy's a stand-up, really intelligent, talented musician, songwriter, everything. We'd let him go out in the middle of our set and do his medley of his Warrant hits. It went over really well with people. It's like you got 2 bands in one, kind of. Yeah. But,
and he was sober at that point. He's another person who struggled through addiction.
Well, he actually had one more show to do with us on New Year's Eve, but Terry Lewis ended up doing that show. And then shortly after that, I don't know if that's when Janie passed, or if it was within a month or several weeks after that show. Might have been really close to that. I don't remember. But yeah, it went from Janie, and then we got Terry.
Yeah, and Terry was there for a while. And
for a while. I mean, he has a great voice, great musician, very professional, but the fans just would not accept him with us. I kept getting, you guys got to get Jack back. You guys got to get Jack back. And then these people, bang, he looks like Fez, or he looks like Poncherelli, or your singer's wearing a wig, or all this weird stuff. And it's just, it's Great White's, this surfer singer, every guy kind of California dude, right? That's the image that we had. And then here we got this European little guy from, French guy, and people are going, huh? But he had I always respected him as a musician. He's a great player. It just, our personalities would clash, and it just grew old, basically. But he lasted a long time. But people would not accept us fully with him at all. But that wasn't the reason why we parted ways. But
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it was a good run, two studio albums, but the difference in personalities, I could see that being around your camp a little bit too.
yeah,
And so Mitch Malloy was up next. That one I didn't completely get.
yeah, that was a surprise to me. Basically, Michael had talked to him for a while. I mean, I saw him on the cruise, and the next thing you know, Terry brought him up to sing the chorus of "What's Been Twice Shy," and then a couple weeks later, he's like, hey, "This guy's gonna be our singer." Oh, okay. You know, uh, Michael had talked to him and let him sing some demos to our music, and then he played them to us, and it sounded great. You know, in the studio. And then when Mitch flew out from Florida or Tennessee at the time where we lived, he came in and rehearsed with us live. You know, after we were done, I just went to Scotty and went, "Oh man, this guy, you know, he's really not that good of a singer. He can't handle those songs. They're big shoes to fill. He didn't have the range to hit those notes, and every time we'd play, he would be struggling. You know, and
It just didn't, to an outside observer, it just didn't fit the look and the fan and the whole, the whole.
yeah, it's just like now what's next? We're just desperately trying to find somebody to fit in that we can go, this is our singer, the end. You know, I mean, nobody wants to have a million singers because after a while you just become a joke to people. It's like, oh, who they got this month? You know. But then, you know, certain circumstances, like with Andrew, I thought it was a great fit. Professional, can handle the tunes, but he was, you know, the last in line thing was his priority. And he had shows and we had shows, and we're not going to sit back and go, okay, when you finish your shows, let us know, and then we'll do a couple of ours, hopefully. You know, we got careers too, so we couldn't make that work. That's the only reason why, you know,
Yeah.
he's not in the band. But then the fact that we got Brett, which was great because this good friend of mine for like over 22 years was managing Brett and this band, All or Nothing, who actually was Mitch's backup band when Mitch was doing this Van Halen thing that he was trying to do. And the kids played a joke on him and he fired them all. And so my friend Eric, who put a bunch of his money in the project, was trying to make his money back. So he ended up managing this Brett's band, All or Nothing. And he goes, hey, you know, Brett could totally handle those songs a great way. I go, yeah, he probably could, huh? So that's how that happened. You know, he came down. I don't even think we rehearsed with the guy. I think we just did a show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he
Yeah.
just handled it. And we're like, whoa. You know, and then we're, you know, doing stuff off the first record. And it's like all those really screams. He could totally handle those. So it's exciting. It's cool.
Yeah, as I said, it's added a new life. We're looking at the current lineup here. Here you guys are
Yeah.
with Brett,
And
and you're out there, and you're working. We'll put links in the description so people can check out your stuff and check out Great White stuff and see the dates. And you know what? People can see for themselves sometimes. Uh,
sure.
at home, you could be skeptical. I understand, but this is one that maybe if you see it, I like that we play these bills, you know, the bands where there's a lot of bands, and that gives you a bit of a taste. You know, I saw you not too long ago. It was make sure Slaughter was there, and
Mm-hmm.
you guys and Steven. And I remember that there's a lot of fans, and sometimes at those shows they only know the hits. There's a
Sure.
few of the hardcores, but I think it's a good chance to get a taste of everybody. And then if you see it and you like it, well, then you can look for more. New music with Brett, you think, on the way?
Yeah, it's a strong possibility. Yeah, Mark's got some. He's had Brett over a few times. They're kicking around some ideas, doing some rough demos with the drum machine, and everybody has ideas. So when we actually have some time, we'll probably get together in a studio and throw out the ideas and see if we can come up with some cool tunes and possibly for sure record those.
Yeah, a lot of times I feel like I'll just take the nostalgia, just give me the hits. But in this case, I would really like to hear what Great White songs, new songs, would sound like with Brett singing them. And I think a lot of fans would feel that way too.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's very exciting. You know, definitely a shot in the arm, especially if we're going to do some new stuff. It'll be, yeah, you know, to
Yeah,
be
like I said, I've seen almost all the singers with you guys, and I've seen the demeanor of the band. And nowadays, everybody seems to be a lot happier, a little extra pep
yeah,
in the step. You know, maybe
yeah,
somebody younger can sometimes add a little energy to all of us.
oh, for sure, absolutely.
So, what's next, Audie? I'm sure you're back out soon.
Yeah, a couple of weeks we're going to be playing in Kentucky, but we got a whole kinds of stuff lined up all the way till next year. I actually see dates in January already for
Mhm.
next year on there. But yeah, and Sullivan's filling them in as they come. But yeah, we got quite a few lined up already through the year and through the summer, especially.
I
So
don't
we'll
think
be busy.
Yeah, not everybody watching understands how it works these days. Some people remember, oh, the record comes out and you get on the bus and you promote it. It's not like that for everybody these days. Most people not. A lot of
Right,
fly days. Sullivan also represents Stephen Pearcy, so I see those same
right,
schedules and things could pop up, and that's why you have to have a consistent lineup because you never know
right,
what's going to pop up when, and you can't keep checking other people's schedules.
right. You got to have a singer of your own.
I,
Yeah,
I thought Warrant was very smart. They tried a few people that didn't work, but they locked up Robert Mason. They said he's going to be our
yeah,
singer. Janie's no
sure.
longer here, and I
Right.
think that it works. And
It,
so one
I
of the
think it
two,
works great. He's perfect for that band. He really, you know, really puts a fire in him. Sure.
yeah. I feel like there's no reason to even ask if there's going to be a reunion because I know your answer.
Yeah, yeah. It just couldn't physically be possible. I think, especially, it's
That
just, and it's just so much damage, verbal damage, emails to us from him that nobody will ever know what they were, and they're pretty bad. And just, it's like cutting in beyond the moon. And it's just, I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, I can't see that happening. Uh, unfortunately, I guess for a lot of diehard fans, I'm sure there might be some fans that love to see us with Jack one time or whatever. But I
when
just
he
can't.
spoke to Mark, he didn't want to, he didn't want to completely say never, but he also very much believed that it would be too difficult. And as you said, too many things have crossed, and it, not even sure his health or someone can sort of even referee that. And at that point, maybe it's better to keep it. What's best for the fan is not always what's best for the band. Unfortunately, sometimes.
This is true. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
If it was easy, we'd see all our favorite bands, and
Oh yeah,
you
no
know,
problem. Yeah,
rock and
it would,
roll isn't always easy.
no, it's not. It would be awful. Say hypothetically, we did one show with them, and then would he be like all lethargic, all nodding out in the dressing room while we're sound checking, look over them, see him like this? Would he have to be carried on stage, sitting on a stool? Is he going to fall off? All kinds of stuff. And those have all stuff happened. But
Yeah. And not something you want to relive or be remembered for. Sometimes remember your bands the way they were when it happened.
go out with some dignity. Don't just push it to where it sucks. And that's all people remember.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Audie, thank you so much for spending all the time with me.
Thank you
And
so much.
like I said, we'll have links so people can check out everything that's going on with Great White.
That's awesome. That sounds great.
Thank you everyone for watching. Make sure you subscribe and check out